AITA for refusing to cover for my mother-in-law after she invited my wife's ex to our wedding? I'm Ralph, 36, and until my wedding reception, I thought becoming Hannah's husband would finally stop her mother from treating me like a temporary mistake. I'm the kind of guy who checks vendor emails twice, keeps extra phone chargers in the car, and tries not to turn family tension into a public scene. I had spent most of our engagement telling myself that Marlene was just one of those mothers who struggled to let go. By the end of our wedding night, I understood that she had never been trying to let go. She had been trying to prove I didn't belong there in the first place. Hannah and I had been together long enough for me to know the difference between a normal, difficult parent and a parent who used politeness like a knife. Marlene, Hannah's mother, wasn't the type to slam a door or scream at Thanksgiving. That would have made her too easy to call out. She preferred little comments that sounded almost harmless until you heard enough of them in a row. "Ralph is very dependable," she said once at a family dinner, while passing me a bowl of mashed potatoes. "That matters too, I guess." Another time, when Hannah and I brought over dessert, Marlene looked at the store-bought cake in my hands and smiled. "Oh, that's sweet. Not everyone thinks to make things special." I had bought the cake because Hannah had texted me that morning saying her mother hated surprises and preferred that exact bakery. Hannah squeezed my knee under the table and mouthed, "Ignore her." That became the pattern. Marlene would say something polished and sharp. Hannah would tense up. I would swallow the response sitting on my tongue. Later, in the car or in our kitchen, Hannah would say, "She didn't mean it like that." And I would say, "How did she mean it?" Hannah never had a clean answer. The name that came up most often was Evan. Evan had dated Hannah years before me. From what Hannah told me, they were serious for a while, and then the relationship died slowly because Evan wanted a life that looked good from the outside and Hannah wanted one that felt real on the inside. She never talked about him with longing. There was no hidden box of photos, no late-night messages, no dramatic, unfinished chapter. As far as I knew, Evan was just a person from her past. To Marlene, Evan was a golden statue. Evan always knew how to make Hannah feel seen. She said once while we were helping her move folding chairs from her garage. Hannah sighed. "Mom, can we not?" "I'm only saying," Marlene replied. "Some men have a sense of occasion. Some men are more practical." She looked at me when she said practical, like it was a stain on my shirt. I picked up 3 chairs and carried them to the patio. That was usually my answer. Say nothing. Help anyway. Give her no opening. For a while, I was proud of that restraint. I thought it meant I was mature. I thought it meant I was protecting Hannah from being stuck between the man she loved and the mother who raised her. Now I understand that sometimes silence doesn't keep the peace. Sometimes it teaches people that the next insult is safe. When Hannah and I got engaged, Marlene's reaction was exactly what you would expect from someone who wanted to look gracious but felt offended by reality. She hugged Hannah first, then me. Her arms barely touched my shoulders. "Well," she said, blinking quickly, "this is certainly a big step." Hannah held up her hand, smiling so hard her cheeks went pink. "Mom." Marlene recovered in front of everyone. "I'm happy if Hannah is happy," she said. It was the kind of sentence that sounded supportive until you noticed the trapdoor underneath it. At first, I tried to include her in wedding planning because I thought that would calm her down. Hannah wanted a simple wedding. Not cheap, not careless, just not a production designed to impress people we barely knew. Marlene wanted a performance. She cared about the seating chart, the order of speeches, the hotel blocks, the way the photos would look on social media, and whether the napkins looked elevated. One night, after a long call with her mother, Hannah dropped her phone onto the couch and rubbed both hands over her face. She asked if we were doing a champagne tower. I looked up from the laptop. Are we the kind of people who do a champagne tower? No. Then there's our answer. She said Evan's cousin had one at their wedding, and it looked incredible. I closed the laptop halfway. Why does Evan's cousin's wedding matter to ours? Hannah stared at the ceiling. It doesn't. She just talks. No, Hannah. She aims. She didn't argue. That was the problem. Hannah knew. She knew enough to feel exhausted by it, but not enough to stop it. A few weeks before the wedding, I started noticing small things in the planning emails. Our planner, Kelsey, sent a message asking us to confirm the late added guest for table 7. I was sitting at the kitchen counter eating leftover pasta from a plastic container when I opened it. I read the line twice. Hannah, I called toward the living room. Did we add someone to table 7? She came in wearing pajama pants and one of my old shirts, phone in hand. What? I turned the laptop toward her. Her forehead wrinkled. Maybe Mom added one of her cousins? Without telling us. She probably told me, and I forgot. That answer bothered me because Hannah didn't forget wedding details. She had a folder on her phone for screenshots of flower colors. She remembered which guest had a shellfish allergy. She knew exactly how many kids' meals we had approved. I clicked open the attached seating chart PDF. There was one name I didn't recognize near Hannah's family table. Evan. Not family friend. Not a cousin. Evan. I looked at Hannah. Her face changed so quickly that it told me two things at once. She recognized the name, and she hadn't expected it to be there. Why is Evan on our seating chart? She reached for the laptop. That has to be a mistake. Is there another Evan? No. Then it's not that kind of mistake. She stood there for a few seconds, breathing shallowly. I'll talk to Mom. Tonight. She's going to say I'm making the wedding stressful. Hannah. I said I'll talk to her. But she didn't. Not that night. The next afternoon, she told me Marlene claimed she had asked about adding a family friend, and Kelsey must have misunderstood. Marlene said the name was just a placeholder from an old list she had sent. Hannah said it was handled. Evan was removed. No problem. I wanted to believe her because the alternative meant having a serious fight with my future wife 2 weeks before our wedding over her mother inviting her ex-boyfriend. So I saved the email. I saved the PDF too. Not because I planned to use it. Because something in my stomach told me this wasn't over. A week later, Jenna, one of Hannah's bridesmaids, stopped by while I was dropping off a box of welcome bags at Hannah's place. She was wearing workout clothes and carrying 3 iced coffees in a cardboard tray. Oh, she said casually. Did you guys figure out the family friend thing? Hannah froze with a roll of ribbon in her hand. I looked at Jenna. What family friend? Jenna's smile faded. Maybe I misunderstood. Hannah said quickly, it was nothing. My mom was confused. Jenna looked between us and set the coffees on the table. She just asked me if there was a tactful way to squeeze someone important near her table. I thought it was an older relative or something. Did she say his name? I asked. Jenna hesitated. No. She just said someone who had meant a lot to Hannah's story. I actually laughed, but there was no humor in it. That sounds like your mom. Hannah's eyes filled with embarrassment, not anger. Jenna, it's fine. Jenna lifted both hands. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was a thing. After she left, I stood by the dining table and waited for Hannah to speak first. She didn't. So I said, did your mother ask again? I don't know. That's not an answer. Hannah put the ribbon down. I think she is attached to this idea that certain people should be there. Certain people, meaning Evan. I told her no. When? Hannah looked away. I said her name softly. When did you tell her no? She brought it up after the bridal shower. I shut it down. And you didn't tell me. I didn't want to make it bigger. It's bigger because I found out by accident. Her eyes flashed then, not with anger at me, but with panic. I'm trying to get through the wedding without my mother turning everything into a war. And I'm trying not to start my marriage as a guest in your mother's version of your life. That landed. Hannah sat down hard in one of the dining chairs. I know, she whispered. I know she does this. I wanted to push. I wanted to ask her why knowing never seemed to change anything. But she looked so worn down that I stopped. I told myself we could handle Marlene after the wedding. I told myself one more stretch of restraint was worth it. Still, I called Chris that night. Chris was my groomsman and one of the few people who could hear silence over the phone. What happened? He asked after I said hello. Nothing officially. That sounds like something unofficially. I told him about the email, the seating chart, Jenna's comment, and Evan. Chris listened without interrupting. At the end, he said, you think she's actually going to try something at the wedding? I hope not. But if speeches get weird, keep your phone ready. He exhaled. You want me to record your mother-in-law? I want the room to remember what actually happened. Chris was quiet for a second. Then he said, done. I also emailed Kelsey and asked her to send me the final seating chart before it went to print. She sent it that evening. Evan was gone. For about 5 days, I let myself relax. The rehearsal dinner was tense, but survivable. Marlene wore a pale blue dress and walked around acting like a woman who had personally invented marriage. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, tomorrow is a big day. I hope you're ready for all it means. I said I am. She smiled. Good. Hannah deserves certainty. I held her gaze. She has it. Her smile thinned. Hannah saw the exchange and slipped her hand into mine. For once, she didn't tell me to ignore it. The ceremony the next day was beautiful in the way private things can still be beautiful even when they happen in front of people. Hannah cried during her vows. I almost did when she said, "You have never made me feel like I had to perform to be loved." I remember looking at her right then and thinking, this is the truth. Not her mother. Not the comments. Not Evan's shadow. This. When we walked back down the aisle together, everyone clapped, and Hannah squeezed my hand so tight my fingers hurt. Marlene stood in the front row, smiling too perfectly, dabbing the corner of one eye with a tissue. For about 40 minutes, I let myself believe love had outrun the weirdness. Then we got to the reception. There was a place card table near the entrance, with white cards arranged alphabetically. Guests were picking theirs up, laughing, checking table numbers, asking where the bar was. I was halfway through saying hello to one of my cousins when I saw Marlene near the family tables with her hand on a man's arm. I knew him before anyone said his name. I had seen pictures once, years earlier, when Hannah and I were still new and she was showing me old group photos from her 20s. Evan had the kind of face people describe as charming when they mean polished. Dark suit, easy smile, expensive watch. Standing too comfortably in a room where he should have felt awkward. Marlene turned at the exact moment my eyes landed on him. Her face lit up. "Oh, Ralph," she called, waving me over. "You remember Evan, don't you? Well, maybe not personally, but you've heard the stories. There are moments when anger comes hot. This wasn't one of them. Mine came cold, like someone had opened a freezer inside my chest." Evan extended his hand. "Hey, Ralph. Congratulations." I looked at his hand, then at his face. He seemed nervous, but not smug. Not predatory. Just uncomfortable in the way a person is uncomfortable when they realize a room has a temperature they weren't warned about. I shook his hand once. "Evan." Hannah came up beside me. She had been smiling at someone behind us, and then she saw him. The smile disappeared. Evan's expression shifted. "Hannah, you look beautiful. Congratulations." She didn't answer immediately. Her mouth opened, then closed. Marlene stepped in with a laugh. "Isn't this mature?" I told Evan enough time had passed, and everyone would be adults. Love stories shape us, after all. I turned to Hannah. "Did you know?" Her eyes were glassy. "No." Marlene made a soft TSK sound. "Ralph, don't start. He was on the final count." "No, he wasn't." Her head tilted. The day is not about spreadsheets. It is when someone is added to them without the couple's consent. Evan's eyebrows pulled together. "Wait. I was told you both knew." Hannah whispered, "Mom." Marlene's smile didn't move. "This is hardly the place." That was the first true thing she said all night. I looked past her and saw Chris near the bar. He had seen enough to stop laughing at whatever Trevor, our MC, had said. His phone was already in his hand. I took Hannah lightly by the elbow and guided her a few steps away from Marlene and Evan. "Did you know he might come?" I asked. "No." "Hannah, I didn't know she actually invited him." "That is not the same as no." She flinched like I had raised my voice. I had not. I saw messages from her, Hannah admitted. She kept saying it would be healing if certain people were included. I told her not to do anything weird. "Did you say Evan's name?" "No." "Why?" "Because I thought naming it would turn it into a fight." I looked across the room where Marlene was now introducing Evan to one of her sisters. She touched his shoulder while talking, the way proud people touch trophies. "You avoided a fight with her," I said quietly, and handed one to me. Hannah's eyes filled. "I'm sorry. I wanted to believe that was enough. Maybe on another day, in another room, it could have been the beginning of a real conversation." But the DJ had just announced dinner seating. Guests were moving toward tables, and my wife's ex-boyfriend was sitting 2 tables from ours because her mother had decided our wedding needed a ghost. We sat at the head table. Hannah was stiff beside me. I barely touched my salad. Marlene began her tour before the main course. At first, it looked normal. Mother of the bride moving around, laughing with relatives, thanking people for coming. Then I started catching pieces. Evan surprised her once with a whole weekend planned down to the minute. She told a table of her cousins. Hannah always loved a man who could plan. A few minutes later, near the table where my aunt and uncle sat, I heard, he knew how to make her feel like the center of the room. Some men just have that gift. My uncle looked over at me, confused. My aunt stared into her wine like she wanted to climb into the glass. At another table, Marlene said, "It's nice when past and present can be in one room without insecurity. That shows real confidence." That one was aimed directly at me. I didn't move. Chris passed behind me on his way to the restroom and leaned down just enough to murmur, "I've got audio." I nodded once. Trevor, the MC, came over during dinner and asked if we were still good for the speech order. "Same order?" he asked. "Marlene, best man, maid of honor. Then you two thank everyone?" Hannah started to say something, but Marlene appeared beside him like she had been summoned by the word speech. "Yes," she said brightly. "I've kept mine short and heartfelt." I looked at her. "Have you?" Her eyes flicked to me. "Of course." Hannah touched my wrist under the table. I could feel her hand trembling. "Ralph," she whispered, "please don't let her ruin this." I turned to her. "I'm not the one trying to." She looked down. That was when I realized something painful. Hannah wanted me to absorb the humiliation quietly so the day could still look normal. She wasn't doing it because she didn't love me. She was doing it because she had been trained to fear the cost of embarrassing her mother more than the cost of wounding herself. But love doesn't make that harmless. The speeches started after dinner. Trevor tapped the microphone and made a joke about how he had been warned not to stand between a wedding crowd and dessert. People laughed. The room softened. For a second, I hoped Marlene would look around, see the happiness, and choose decency. She took the microphone like she had been waiting for her cue all year. "My sweet Hannah," she began, one hand pressed to her chest. "I have imagined this day for you since you were a little girl dancing in the kitchen wearing my old scarves." That part was fine. Sweet, even. Hannah's shoulders dropped a little beside me. Marlene continued. "A mother remembers every version of her daughter. The shy one, the stubborn one, the romantic one. And of course, a mother remembers the people who helped her daughter become the woman she is." Something in the room shifted. I saw Jenna glance at Chris. Marlene smiled toward Evan's table. "Some people teach us our standards," she said. "Some people show us what love can look like when it is thoughtful, ambitious, and full of grand gestures." A few guests gave uncertain little laughs, like they were waiting for the joke to reveal itself. It didn't. Marlene went on. "And then, if we are lucky, life brings us someone steady, someone safe, someone who may not arrive with all the poetry and sparkle we once imagined, but who perhaps gives us something else." I felt Hannah's hand grip mine under the table. Marlene turned toward me. "Ralph," she said warmly, as if she were blessing me, "I hope you understand the big shoes you have to fill. My daughter has been loved very well in her life. She deserves to continue being loved at that level." The room went quiet in pieces. First the tables closest to us, then the middle tables, then the back, where someone stopped clinking a glass. I could hear the air conditioning. I could hear Hannah's breath catch. Evan looked like he wanted the floor to open. Marlene lifted her glass. "To Hannah and Ralph. May he always remember what a treasure he has been trusted with." A few people clapped, because people clap at weddings when they don't know what else to do. It was thin and awkward and painful. I wanted to stand up right then. I wanted to take the microphone from her and ask exactly how long she had practiced making me small. I wanted to ask Hannah why I was the only person at our own wedding who seemed surprised by how far her mother would go. Instead, I waited. That was the one thing Marlene hadn't prepared for. She expected anger. She expected insecurity. She expected me to either swallow it and look weak or explode and prove her point. So I sat there. I picked up my water glass. I took one sip. I set it down. I looked at Evan, who looked genuinely sick. I looked at Hannah, who had tears on her cheeks but still hadn't stood up. Then I looked at Marlene, who was smiling like she had just won a private game. Trevor returned to the microphone too quickly, trying to save the room. "Thank you, Marlene, for those heartfelt words," he said, stumbling only slightly. "Now we'll hear from Chris." Chris stood with his phone in one hand and his note card in the other. He didn't make a joke at my expense. He didn't pretend nothing had happened. He gave the shortest best man speech I have ever heard. "I've known Ralph a long time," he said. "He is loyal, patient, and careful with people, sometimes even when they don't deserve it. Hannah, he loves you. Ralph, I hope you remember that being patient doesn't mean being silent when something matters." To both of you. It wasn't subtle, but it was clean. People clapped harder for him than they had for Marlene. Jenna's speech came next. She was supposed to tell a funny story about Hannah getting lost on a hiking trail. Instead, she looked at Hannah and said, "You deserve a marriage that is protected, not performed. I love you. I'm happy you chose someone who sees you clearly. Hannah started crying harder. Marlene stopped smiling. Then Trevor looked at us. And now Ralph and Hannah would like to thank everyone. Hannah's hand tightened around mine. Ralph. I leaned close. I won't insult you. I won't insult Evan. But I'm not going to pretend that was normal. She closed her eyes, and for one terrifying second I thought she would ask me not to. Instead, she whispered, "Okay." I stood. Trevor handed me the microphone. His face was pale. "You good?" "No," I said quietly. "But I'm calm." The microphone was heavier than I expected. I looked out at the room. My family, Hannah's family, friends, cousins, people who had dressed up and bought gifts, and watched my mother-in-law compare me to another man at my own wedding. I could feel Marlene staring at me. "First," I said, "thank you to everyone who came here today to support our marriage. Not the idea of a perfect event. Not a performance. Our marriage." The room stayed still. I turned slightly toward Hannah. "Hannah, I meant every word I said earlier. I married you because I love who you are, not because I'm trying to compete with anyone who came before me." Her face crumpled, but she nodded. Then I looked at Marlene. "I also want to say I appreciate the advice about filling another man's shoes," I said. "But I came here to marry your daughter, not audition for a role her ex left behind." No one moved. Marlene's mouth opened just a little. I continued, keeping my voice even because I knew the second I sounded angry, she would use it. "I'm not asking to be everyone's favorite person. I'm not asking anyone to rewrite Hannah's past. But I will not stand here at my own wedding and pretend it is loving, mature, or heartfelt to invite my wife's ex without our clear consent, seat him near the family table, and use a toast to compare me to him." A murmur moved through the room. Marlene laughed once, too high. "Ralph, don't be dramatic." I kept the microphone near my mouth. "This is me being very careful not to be dramatic." That line did something. A few people looked down. Someone at the back whispered, "Oh my God." I said, "A good husband doesn't need your approval to respect his wife. But a good family should know better than humiliating her marriage for entertainment." Marlene's face turned red. I looked at Evan. "And Evan, I don't know what you were told. I'm not blaming you for being here unless you knew this was the plan." Evan stood halfway, shaking his head. "I didn't." Marlene snapped, "Sit down." That was the first time her mask truly slipped. Everyone heard it. Hannah stood beside me then. Her chair scraped the floor loudly. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was clear. "Mom," she said, "stop." Marlene turned to her. "Honey, he is embarrassing himself." "No," Hannah said. "You embarrassed him. You embarrassed me. You used my wedding to make a point." Marlene looked around, realizing the room was no longer hers. "I gave a toast," she said. "That is all." Hannah wiped under one eye. "No, you gave a warning." The silence after that felt different. Not shocked anymore. Deciding. I handed the microphone back to Trevor. He looked like he wanted to vanish into the floor, but he took it and said, "We're going to take a short break before dessert." Music started softly. Too softly. Nobody danced. The reception didn't explode. There were no thrown drinks, no fistfights, no screaming match in the parking lot. That almost made it worse for Marlene, because without chaos, there was nothing to blame but what she had said. People came up to us in careful little waves. My aunt hugged Hannah and told her, "I'm sorry that happened." One of Hannah's cousins whispered to me, "That was weird," from the second he walked in. An older uncle from Marlene's side patted my shoulder and said, "Families say stupid things at weddings. Don't start your marriage with drama." I looked him in the eye. "She started it. I named it." He had no answer for that. Evan left before dessert. I saw him talking to Hannah near the hallway first. He kept his hands in his pockets, his posture hunched. "I'm sorry," he told her. "I really thought you knew." Hannah nodded, but she didn't hug him. "You should have checked with me." "You're right," he said. "I'm sorry." Then he came to me. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I didn't make it easy." "Yes." He accepted that. "Marlene told me you both were comfortable with me coming. She said it was about closure. I should have confirmed with you directly." "Yes, you should have." He nodded. "That part is on me. But I swear I didn't know she was going to do that." I believed him. Not because I liked him, but because his discomfort had been too immediate to fake. "Send me what she told you," I said. He blinked. "What?" "If you're telling the truth, send me the messages." He looked toward Marlene, who was now surrounded by two relatives, and speaking with sharp little hand movements. Then he pulled out his phone. I will. Hannah and I left early. That sentence sounds simple, but it wasn't. Leaving your own wedding reception early feels like walking out of a movie while you are still on the screen. The photographer asked if we still wanted the sparkler exit photos. Hannah looked at me, and I looked at the crowd of guests pretending not to watch us. No, I said. I'm not posing in a photo where everyone pretends that was normal. Hannah's voice was small but steady. Then we leave together. Marlene tried to intercept us near the gift table. This is ridiculous, she hissed, low enough that nearby guests might not hear every word, but loud enough that we were supposed to feel it. You are punishing everyone because you took a toast the wrong way. I stopped. No, I said. I am ending my participation in the part of the evening where you perform innocence. Her eyes narrowed. You could have handled it privately instead of embarrassing me. I looked past her at the room, at the tables, at the place cards, at the man she had placed there like a prop. You used a microphone first. Her lips pressed together. Hannah stepped forward. Mom, we're leaving. Marlene stared at her like Hannah had slapped her. You would leave your own reception? Hannah's chin trembled. You already did. We went home in the back of a car, still wearing our wedding clothes. Hannah stared out the window. I loosened my tie and watched streetlights move across the glass. Neither of us spoke for 10 minutes. Finally, she said, I failed you. I was too tired to soften it. Yes. She cried silently. I didn't reach for her right away. That was hard to admit then, and it's hard to admit now. I loved her. I had married her less than 6 hours earlier. But love doesn't erase the feeling of standing alone while your wife freezes beside you. When we got inside, she kicked off her shoes by the door and sat at the kitchen table still in her dress. The house was quiet. Too quiet after all that music and clinking glass and forced laughter. I didn't invite him, she said. I know. But I saw signs. I know that too. She looked down at her hands. I thought if I ignored it, the day would just pass. I thought if I didn't say his name, she wouldn't push it. Your mother opened the door, I said. But you left it unlocked because you were afraid of hearing her knock. That hurt her. I saw it. But she didn't defend herself. I was trying to avoid a fight with her, she said. And I created one with you instead. I sat across from her. I need to know something, I said. Are you more afraid of disappointing your mother than hurting me? She closed her eyes. The pause was long enough to answer before she spoke. I have been, she whispered. Not because I love her more. Because I learned early that disappointing her turns into a whole weather system. Coldness. Guilt. Everyone calling me. Everyone telling me to fix it. And you, she swallowed. You usually stay calm. So I think some part of me expected you to absorb it. That cannot be my role in this marriage. I know. No, Hannah. You have to know it beyond tonight. Because if your mother gets to humiliate me at our wedding and still gets breakfast with us tomorrow like nothing happened, then we are teaching her the price is zero. Hannah wiped her face with both hands. Then we cancel breakfast. The post-wedding breakfast had been Marlene's idea. One last graceful gathering, she called it. A way to thank family who traveled. At that moment, I couldn't imagine anything worse than sitting under fluorescent morning light while Marlene poured coffee and acted wounded. Hannah picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered. Then she opened the family group chat. I watched her type. We are canceling tomorrow morning's breakfast. After what happened tonight, Ralph and I need space. Please do not come by the house. We'll contact everyone later. She stared at it for a long moment, then hit send. Replies came almost immediately. Aunt Denise. Hannah. Honey, are you sure? Emotions are high. Cousin Mark. Probably smart TBH. Marlene. I cannot believe you are doing this to family after I gave you a beautiful wedding. My mother. We love you both. We'll talk when you're ready. Marlene again. Ralph. I hope you are proud of isolating my daughter on her wedding night. I took Hannah's phone gently and set it face down. Notifications off, I said. She nodded and changed the settings with shaking fingers. My own phone started buzzing next. Some messages were supportive. Some were the kind of family nonsense that appears when people value quiet over truth. Your MIL meant well. It was just a toast. Don't let one awkward moment ruin everything. You should apologize for calling her out publicly. Chris texted me a video file without commentary. Then another. Then a message. Saved everything. Side angle has her face when Evan stands up. You'll want that. I wrote back, thank you. Then I texted the videographer. Please preserve the full raw footage from speeches and reception entrances. Do not discard audio. We may need the unedited files. He replied within minutes. Of course. I'll back everything up tonight. Hannah watched me. You think we'll need it? I think your mother will rewrite tonight by sunrise. She didn't argue. She was asleep by 2 in the morning, curled on the far side of the bed, still smelling faintly of hairspray and perfume. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Marlene's voice saying big shoes to fill while people watched me decide what kind of man I was going to be. At 7:14 the next morning, Evan sent screenshots. His first message said, I'm sorry again. Here's what I have. I should have checked with you and Hannah directly. The screenshots were from Marlene. Marlene, Hannah and Ralph are mature about the past. It would mean a lot if you came. There has been tension over the years, and I think this could bring closure. Evan, are you sure Ralph is okay with that? I don't want to make anything weird. Marlene, he knows Hannah had a life before him. If he is confident in the marriage, it should not be an issue. Evan, does Hannah know? Marlene, of course. I would never create discomfort on her wedding day. I read that last sentence 3 times. Then I sent the screenshots to Hannah. She came into the kitchen 20 seconds later in sweatpants and yesterday's makeup smudged under her eyes. She lied to him too, she said. Yes. Hannah sat down slowly. She told me she dropped it. She told everyone whatever they needed to hear. Hannah covered her mouth. I thought that was the worst of it. It wasn't. At 8:03, Denise called Hannah. Hannah let it ring. Denise called again. Then she texted, please answer. I need to send you something before your mother starts calling people. Hannah looked at me. I said, put it on speaker. She answered. Denise's voice came through tight and breathless. I'm not getting in the middle. Hannah gave a short, humorless laugh. You called twice to say that. I'm serious. I don't want to be blamed. Then why are you calling? Denise sighed. Because your mother is already telling people Ralph had some jealous meltdown because Evan attended. That is not what happened. I leaned closer. Denise, do you have something? Silence. Then she said, she texted me before the wedding. I thought she was venting. I didn't realize she was actually going to do all that. Hannah's voice went flat. Send it. I don't want your mother knowing it came from me. Then don't protect her after helping her. Denise inhaled sharply. That's not fair. Hannah looked at me. Something changed in her face. Not healed. Not fixed. But awake. No, Hannah said. What happened at my wedding wasn't fair. Send it. Denise did. The screenshot appeared in Hannah's messages. Marlene, I added Evan back near the family tables. Hannah is too soft to admit she needs to be reminded what real standards look like. Denise, Marlene, that sounds like a bad idea. Marlene, if Ralph can't handle seeing what real standards look like, maybe he shouldn't be marrying her. Denise, does Hannah know? Marlene, Hannah avoids hard conversations. Sometimes mothers have to create clarity. I read it once. Then again. Hannah made a sound I had never heard from her before. Not a sob. More like something cracked behind her ribs. She didn't just disrespect you, she said. She thinks I can't choose my own life. I didn't say, I told you. I didn't need to. The truth was sitting on her phone. By noon, the family group chat had become exactly what I expected. Marlene posted a long message. I am sorry if anyone misunderstood my intentions last night. My toast came from a place of love and memory. I will not be attacked for honoring the full journey that made my daughter who she is. Ralph's reaction was painful and unnecessary, but I hope we can all move forward with grace. A cousin replied, Aunt Marlene, you literally told him he had big shoes to fill while the ex was sitting there. Another relative wrote, this is getting blown out of proportion. Chris, who wasn't even in that family chat, but had been added for wedding coordination, sent one sentence. I have the speech recorded if anyone is confused. Nobody replied for 4 minutes. Then Marlene wrote, sharing private wedding moments to shame the mother of the bride would be cruel. I typed my only message in that thread. Then released the full video and let people decide whether it was heartfelt. Hannah read it beside me and nodded. Then she typed her own. Mom, stop calling this a misunderstanding. I did not approve Evan being invited. Ralph did not approve Evan being invited. You compared my husband to my ex during your toast. Do not ask people to help you rename that. Marlene called immediately. Hannah declined it. Marlene called again. Hannah declined again. Then Hannah left the group chat. I didn't know a person could look terrified and relieved at the same time, but she did. The next several days were ugly in a quiet way. Marlene didn't apologize. She campaigned. She called relatives. She cried to friends. She told people I had always been insecure about Evan, which would have been funny if it had not been so insulting. Before that reception, I had thought about Evan maybe 6 times in my life, and 5 of those were because Marlene dragged his name into the room. She told people I had ruined Hannah's wedding. The video ruined that version. Not the edited highlight reel. The raw footage. The videographer sent it 3 days later. I didn't post it online. I didn't send it to everyone I knew. I didn't need to. Families distribute truth the same way they distribute gossip, through whoever feels most justified hitting forward. Chris sent his side angle to 2 people who had accused me of overreacting. Jenna sent a message to the bridesmaids saying she had personally heard Marlene ask about adding a family friend. Evan sent Hannah and me a written apology and said clearly that Marlene told him both of us had approved his attendance. Denise, perhaps trying to save herself from being seen as an accomplice, admitted to 2 other relatives that Marlene had discussed seating Evan near the family table before the wedding. Once people saw the speech, the tone changed. My favorite message came from one of Hannah's cousins who had originally written, "It was just a toast." After watching the video, she texted Hannah privately, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how pointed it was." Her face when Ralph spoke says everything. That was the thing about the video. It did what my anger never could have done. It made Marlene's tone impossible to explain away. It showed Evan's discomfort. It showed Hannah's face collapse. It showed Marlene smiling when the room went quiet. It showed intent. A week after the wedding, Hannah and I sat at our kitchen table with coffee going cold between us and had the conversation we should have had months earlier. No phones. No interruptions. No softening everything to make it survivable. "I need you to understand that I'm not asking you to hate your mother," I said. Hannah nodded. "I know. I'm asking you to stop giving her private access to our decisions when she uses that access to undermine us. She won't see it that way. I don't care how she sees it." Hannah looked down. I softened my voice, but not the words. "That sentence is where this has to change." She pressed her thumb against the rim of her mug. I keep hearing her voice in my head, telling me I'm cruel, telling me I'm being manipulated, telling me I'm embarrassing the family. "And what do you hear my voice saying?" She looked up. I said, "Because I'm your family now too." Her eyes filled again, but this time she didn't crumble. "I know." "Do you?" "Yes," she said. "I do. And I'm sorry. Not sorry you felt hurt. Not sorry it became messy. I am sorry I failed to protect us from something I saw coming." That mattered. I had heard a lot of fake apologies in my life. Marlene was practically an artist with them. "I'm sorry if you misunderstood. I'm sorry feelings were hurt. I'm sorry the day became stressful." Hannah's apology didn't hide behind fog. It named the thing. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't want our marriage to be me versus your mother with you watching." "I don't either." "Then the boundary has to come from both of us." She nodded. "Written." I almost smiled. "You know me too well." "No," she said. "I know her. If it's a phone call, she'll twist it by dinner." So we wrote it together. It took 3 drafts because Hannah kept trying to add phrases like "for now" and "until everyone calms down." I told her those phrases were doors. Marlene knew how to walk through doors. The final message was simple. "Mom, what happened at the wedding was not a misunderstanding. You invited Evan without our consent, placed him near family, and used your toast to compare Ralph to him. That damaged trust. For the foreseeable future, you will not visit our home without an invitation. You will not be involved in planning events for us. And we will not attend family gatherings where this is minimized or turned into Ralph's fault. Any apology needs to acknowledge what you did without blaming our reaction. You do not have access to our marriage just because you are my mother. You earn access by respecting it." Hannah sent it. Marlene replied 20 minutes later. "I see Ralph wrote this." Hannah showed me the message. Her jaw tightened. She typed back, "I wrote it with my husband. That is what marriage means." Marlene didn't respond for 2 days. Those 2 days were peaceful in a way that almost made me sad. The house felt lighter. Hannah stopped jumping every time her phone buzzed. We ordered takeout, watched half a movie, and opened wedding cards at the kitchen table. Some envelopes had checks. Some had long notes. One from my parents said, Marriage is built in the moments where you choose each other under pressure. Hannah read that one twice. Then came the vendor problem. Marlene called me, not Hannah. That was the first sign she knew Hannah was no longer the easier door. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I let it go again. Then she texted, "Ralph, I need to speak with you about the reception invoice. This is important." I showed Hannah. She frowned. What invoice? Marlene had insisted on paying for certain reception extras because, as she put it, if my name is attached to this wedding, it will be done properly. Hannah and I had paid for the core vendors. Marlene paid for upgraded linens, additional floral pieces near the family tables, and part of the dessert display. I had kept every invoice because that is who I am. I texted back, "Put it in writing." A minute later, she replied, "This is exactly the kind of hostility I mean." I didn't answer. An hour later, an email arrived. Marlene had apparently disputed a charge with one of the vendors, claiming that the reception had been materially disrupted and that certain services were not delivered in the spirit promised. The vendor pushed back. Somehow, in her attempt to get money back or save face, she had suggested that the evening's conflict had been exaggerated by others and that the couple was satisfied overall. Now the vendor wanted written clarification from us before responding further. Marlene wrote, "All I need is a brief statement that the reception was not ruined and that my toast has been mischaracterized. This has gone too far. People are using this to attack me." I stared at the email for a long time. Hannah stood behind my chair and read it over my shoulder. "She wants you to lie," Hannah said. "Yes. She wants you to say our reception was fine so she can use it against the vendor and the family." "Yes." Hannah walked away from the table, then came back. "What are you going to say?" "The truth." I replied with Hannah copied. "Marlene, I will confirm factual information about payments, invoices, and services delivered. I will not provide a statement saying the incident was exaggerated or harmless. You invited Evan without our consent and made a toast comparing me to him. That is not a vendor issue. And I will not rewrite it to protect your reputation." She called within 30 seconds. This time, I answered and put it on speaker. Hannah sat beside me. Marlene didn't say hello. "You are enjoying this," she said. "No. You are punishing me. I'm refusing to lie for you. You humiliated me in front of everyone." I looked at Hannah. She looked back steadily. I said, "You used my wedding to compare me to my wife's ex-boyfriend." I responded with words. "If the truth humiliates you, that belongs to you." Her breathing sharpened. "You could have handled it privately. You invited him publicly. You seated him publicly. You gave the toast publicly." I was honoring Hannah's past. "You were insulting her choice." Silence. Then Marlene said, quieter, "Hannah, are you there?" Hannah leaned toward the phone. "Yes." "You are letting him speak to me this way." Hannah closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, her voice was calm. "He is speaking to you honestly. That feels harsh because you're used to people cleaning up after you." Marlene gasped. "I am your mother." "I know," Hannah said. "That is why it hurts more that you did this. After everything I gave you." Hannah cut her off. Not loudly, just firmly. "No, you don't get to invoice me emotionally for a wedding you tried to control." I almost looked away because the moment felt too private to witness, even though I was sitting right there. Marlene's voice changed. It got colder. "You will regret choosing this attitude." Hannah's hand found mine under the table. "No," she said. "I regret not choosing it sooner." Marlene hung up. I sent the vendor a factual email that afternoon. I confirmed which services were delivered. I confirmed which payments were made. I confirmed that Hannah and I had left the reception earlier than planned due to a family conflict unrelated to vendor performance. I didn't mention every detail because the vendor didn't need a family documentary. I didn't say the reception was fine. I didn't say Marlene's toast was misunderstood. I didn't give her the sentence she wanted. 2 days later, Marlene sent one more message. "I hope being right is worth breaking this family." Hannah replied before I could. The family was already breaking wherever truth was treated like disrespect. Marlene didn't answer. The consequences came slowly, which made them feel more real. Denise stopped repeating Marlene's version because she knew screenshots existed. Jenna told Hannah she should have spoken up earlier about the family friend comment, and Hannah told her, kindly, that Marlene had put several people in unfair positions. Evan sent a final message saying he wished us well and would not be involved in any future conversation with Marlene about us. I respected that. Some relatives still thought I should have swallowed it for the sake of the day. One of Marlene's cousins sent me a message that said, "A man with confidence would have laughed it off." I replied, "A family with decency would not have asked him to." He didn't answer. Our wedding photos arrived 3 weeks later. They were beautiful and strange. There were pictures where Hannah and I looked radiant. There were pictures where Marlene stood behind us, smiling like nothing in the world could touch her. There were no sparkler exit photos because we had left. At first, that hurt Hannah. Then she found one photo from right after my microphone moment. We were standing side by side. My face was serious. Hannah's eyes were wet. Her hand was wrapped around mine so tightly her knuckles were pale. Behind us, Marlene was blurred in the background, no longer the center of the frame. Hannah ordered that one. Not for the wall. For the inside of a drawer where we keep things that matter but do not need to be displayed. A month after the wedding, Marlene asked to meet. Not apologized. Asked to meet. Her text said, "I think enough time has passed for everyone to be reasonable." Hannah showed it to me while we were making dinner. "What do you want to do?" I asked. She stirred the sauce for a few seconds longer than necessary. "I want a mother who would apologize without needing a meeting first." I nodded. She texted back, "We are not meeting to debate what happened. If you want to apologize, you can write it. If the apology blames Ralph, Evan, the guests, alcohol, stress, or misunderstanding, we are not discussing it." Marlene replied, "You have become very hard." Hannah whispered, "Maybe." Then she typed, "I have become honest." That was the last message for a while. Our marriage didn't magically become easy because we set one boundary. Hannah still had moments where she wanted to check on her mother. I still had moments where resentment rose up when I remembered her sitting silent during the first part of the reception. We talked through those moments instead of burying them. Sometimes the conversation hurt. One night, while folding laundry, Hannah said, "Do you still think about leaving?" I stopped matching socks. "I think about what would happen if nothing changed," I said. "That is not the same thing." She nodded slowly. "That's fair. Do you regret leaving with me?" "No," she said. "I regret making you wonder if I would." That was the difference. She no longer apologized and missed. She put her hands on the actual wound. Marlene eventually sent an apology. It wasn't perfect, but it was the first one that didn't begin with "if." I should not have invited Evan without your clear consent. I should not have compared Ralph to anyone during my toast. I hurt you both and embarrassed myself. I am sorry. Hannah read it out loud, then looked at me. "What do you think?" "I think it's a start," I said. "Not a reset button." Hannah nodded. Agreed. We didn't invite Marlene over. We didn't resume normal holidays. We didn't hand her access because she finally wrote 4 decent sentences after exhausting every other option. We sent a brief response thanking her for acknowledging it and telling her we would take more time before discussing future contact. She hated that. I know because Denise heard about it and, for once, didn't forward the complaints. She simply texted Hannah, "Your mom is angry, but she is also embarrassed. Hold your line." We did. The cleanest consequence was not that everyone hated Marlene. They didn't. Families are more complicated than that. Some people still took her calls. Some people still said she had a good heart and bad delivery. Some people avoided the topic because uncomfortable truths ruin comfortable gatherings. The consequence was that her old method stopped working on us. She could no longer say something cruel and count on Hannah to translate it into concern. She could no longer pull me into private reputation management. She could no longer use money, planning, nostalgia, or public pressure to make herself the final authority over our marriage. And I learned something about myself too, though not in the neat, inspirational way people like to package pain. I learned that I had mistaken endurance for strength. I had thought staying calm meant staying quiet. But calm isn't the same as surrender. Sometimes calm is looking at a room full of people, holding a microphone steady, and refusing to let someone turn disrespect into tradition. Hannah and I kept one boundary written on paper, taped inside the cabinet where we keep mugs. It sounds dramatic, but it helped in the beginning when guilt came knocking. No private access to decisions that affect both of us. No public disrespect without public correction. No pretending peace and humiliation are the same thing. The first time Marlene was not invited to a small dinner at our house, she sent Hannah a sad-looking selfie and wrote, "I miss my daughter." Hannah stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed, "I miss feeling safe bringing my husband around you. That is what needs repair." Marlene didn't respond. That was fine. Not every message needs to become a debate. Months later, people still occasionally bring up our wedding in careful ways. Someone will say, "It was such a beautiful ceremony," and pause before reception. Someone else will joke awkwardly about speeches being dangerous. I don't rescue them from the discomfort anymore. If they ask directly, I tell the truth directly. My mother-in-law invited my wife's ex to our wedding without our consent. She used her toast to compare me to him. I responded calmly in the same room where she chose to humiliate me. Afterward, she asked me to help clean up the story so she could protect her reputation. I refused. That is the whole shape of it. I didn't ruin my wedding by telling the truth. Marlene gambled that I would protect her image more than my own dignity. And for once, someone in that family called the bluff. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.